doing, everybody? How you doing today? Hope you're doing awesome. Okay, what are we checking out today? Some more Trash Theory with Clint Eastwood and the birth of Gorillaz' new British canon. All right, why are we doing it? Because it's a dedicated request for one of my awesome longtime patrons named Allie. So thank you for recommending us, Allie. You're awesome, as always. Let's get into it. Let's see. I do love the Gorillaz. I've listened to several Gorillaz songs, and all of them, I love them. So this is going to be great. Let's see. The birth of Gorillaz.
Cartoon bands as a concept had existed before Gorillaz. While the Archies, Josie and the Pussycats, and Alvin and the Chipmunks had toyed with the medium, Gorillaz was the first time where it was more than just a novelty. For the past 2 decades, they've been pumping out weird and wonderful pop music, spanning multiple genres, and featuring far-reaching musical guests. Who would have thought that the guy from Blur would work with Bobby Womack, Nena Cherry, Noel Gallagher, and half of The Clash? But beyond that, the group has defied all expectations and become global superstars.
It's true. I've never seen what any of the actual band members look like. And I wonder why. Will they explain in this why they chose to be animated all the time? Did they want to not be known in real life so they can walk down the street and have a normal life? Or do they just love animation and they thought it'd be cool and they just kept running with it? I don't know.
As much as they are a cartoon band, the project has evolved way beyond that. But it had to start somewhere, with their first tentative steps. This is New British Canon.
Alright.
And this is the story of Clint Eastwood.
Oh, Clint Eastwood, that's their song. That's a song, right? So it's going to be going about... That's their big hit,
The creation
I
of
think,
Gorillaz all comes down to 2 men, Damon Albarn and Jamie Hewlett. Albarn had made himself known, in the UK at least, as the frontman of Britpop entity Blur. With the band's previous 2 albums, Blur and 13, they had tried to distance themselves musically from their Britpop.
Didn't Blur have a song like, woohoo, da-na-na-na-na-na, woohoo, something like that? I remember having Big Shiny Tunes 2, the CD. Big Shiny Tunes, I think that's like Much Music is our version of MTV, and they put out an album once a year, and it was called Big Shiny Tunes, and I'm pretty sure it was on that. It was one of the first CDs I ever bought. And there was a Blur song on there. Now, was it called Song 2? I think it was.
Blur and 13. They had tried to distance themselves musically from their Britpop
I did not
roots,
know this. It's blowing
experimenting with American alt rock.
Ah, there it is!
Psychedelia.
Never heard that one before.
And electronica. Despite this, Albarn felt limited by the band dynamic, being one voice of 4. Some soundtrack work had whetted his appetite for a solo career, but was unsure of a direction.
He's playing so hard his glasses
fell off.
fell
Hewlett was the creator of the Tank Girl series of comics, and deemed to be one of the defining pop artists of the 1990s.
Now, I've never read Tank Girl, but I'm a big comic book fan, and I know of Tank Girl. Like, I've seen Tank Girl comics all over the place when you go into comic book shops. That is friggin' cool. I never even made that connection before either. Man, this video is blowing my mind. Connecting a lot of dots here.
Series of comics, and deemed to be one of the defining pop artists of the 1990s. But by 94, he'd grown tired of his creation, having been drawing her for 6 years. We were gonna kill the character off when MGM phoned up. We knew that if MGM got their hands on it, they'd fuck it up. But we didn't care because they offered us quite a lot of money. Enough to make me go, oh, okay. The resultant film, 1995's Tank Girl, starring Laurie Petty and Ice-T, bombed financially and critically was not well received.
Oh, okay.
But what next? Albarn and Hewlett had originally met in 1990. Blur's guitarist Graham Coxon persuading Hewlett to interview the fledgling band for Deadline magazine.
They do that though, man. It's like they paid a ton of money for the rights of that character, which they're like, hey, we're going to kill off the character, we're done with it anyway. So that's good that they got a big payout at the end. Good for them. But it's sad when they do that, when studios, they take a hold of a comic book character and then they'll twist it, or they won't do it justice, or like they'll get someone to come in and direct it and they don't even know the source material. They'll just scan 1 or 2 quick comics and be like, yeah, I can make this into a film. And it's like, you got to get to the heart of it. Like, comic book fans are some of the most diehard fans there are, and they want like to see their characters come to life. That's why I'm hoping with the new X-Men movies, when they come out, they get them right this time. I wasn't a big fan of the way they did them in the original ones that I'm a slowly going through on my movie channel. But I hope this time to get it right. But anyways, enough about comic books. Let's get back to this.
Persuading Hewlett to interview the fledgling band for Deadline magazine, home of Tank Girl. Through the mid-90s London party scene, Hewlett and Albarn kept in touch. After breakups with their respective long-term girlfriends, the pair decided to move in together. After a few months of shameless celebrity-packed parties in their swanky new flats, they began to look forwards. We'd spent hours watching MTV and wondering why everything on it was so terrible. I think Damon was tired of being the frontman for Blur, and I was just aghast at how boring most pop groups were when they were interviewed. So we said, let's make up a fake band.
Really? That's an interesting way how to do it.
Gorillaz originated with Murdoch Nichols. Born in Stoke-on-Trent in 1966, his formative inspirations were the likes of Black Sabbath, The Clash, and Anton LaVey.
Heavy metal music and devil worshipping became my favourite pastimes. My
Devil
brother
worshipping.
tastes were more dub and punk based, but I soaked it all up. Actually, it was my love of the Clash that eventually opened up the world of dub reggae to me. But my first true love was always heavy metal. Lovely, thick, gooey black metal.
After making some negotiations with Beelzebub, he acquired Satan's own bass guitar, fittingly named El Diablo. He spent his adolescence and early 20s fronting various groups, including Patchouli Clark, Crimson Backdraft, and Burning Sensations, with limited success. As much as he had musical vision and the Dark Lord's backing, he needed a face and voice more agreeable than...
Okay. Well, first off, there it is like, you know, you got the El Diablo guitar or whatever, and they're like, you know, and you got the Dark Lord behind you. You got the devil at your back, and you're trying to make it into fame and famous. I got to go back and see this pelvic thrusting or whatever he's doing here. Look at this.
And the Dark Lord's backing. He needed a face and voice
Boing.
more agreeable than his own to get through to the music-buying public. In August 1997, Nichols' path collided with amateur keyboard geek Stuart Potts, quite literally. While attempting to acquire new musical equipment through non-financial means, Nichols drove a Vauxhall Astra through Uncle Norm's Organ Emporium, straight into Potts, who happened to be working there at the time. The collision knocked Potts' left eye straight out of his head and left him in a vegetative state. Nichols was sentenced to 30,000 hours of community service and 10 hours a week looking after the comatose Potts. During one of these fun-filled sessions, while Nichols was doing donuts in a Nottingham car park, a jolt made Potts fly through the windscreen and hit the curb face first. This not only relieved him of his right eye, but also his catatonic state. As he rose to his feet, eyeless and half his face missing, Nichols knew he'd found his frontman. Potts would soon adopt the moniker of 2D, in honor of the two deep black dents in his face. Next was drummer Russell Hobb.
That's friggin' cool. I love they got a backstory there with that and why he has no eyes and all that. I just thought it was an animation choice, you know, before watching the videos, but I see now they got a backstory why he has just two blank sockets for eyes. 2D, I like it. The
two deep black dents in his face. Next was drummer Russell Hobbs. Formerly of Brooklyn, New York, he was sent to England by his parents for his own safety after a drive-by shooting by the Grim Reaper himself killed all his friends but spared him.
Immediately, that's when all these spirits that goes to my dead departed friends all entered my body, like they was being sucked up, like sheets being sucked up into a vacuum cleaner.
What?
Bam, bam, whoosh, bam, straight into me.
The event turned his eyes a milky white and gave him the musical abilities of his dead friends. Hobbs was then kidnapped by Nichols and taken to Kong Studios in Essex. He stayed because of how good Nichols' demos were. Their guitarist Noodle, a Japanese 10-year-old.
Okay. That was freaking cool backstory too. It's like, man gets the accident and absorbs all of them and their eyes go white. Now he's got the spirits of all those friends that were like with him and oh my god. Okay, what's the next one?
Because of how good Nichols' demos were. Their guitarist Noodle, a Japanese 10-year-old, joined the group after being sent to Kong Studios in a FedEx crate.
We heard a knock at the studio door, and there's this big box there, and out jumped a small Japanese person carrying a Les Paul. I couldn't make out a word she was saying. It's just gibberish. But then she unleashed a massive guitar riff, what sounded like 200 demons screaming in Arabic. It was brilliant. She ended it with a 20-foot high karate jump. She bowed and just said one word.
20-foot high jump.
With all their members in place, they set about writing music. Their first creation being Ghost Train, formed from a sample of the Human League's The Sound of the Crowd.
Okay, here we go. I never heard that one before.
Their first gig was at the Camden Brown House in November 1998, and it ended in a riot. But despite having only one song, they were instantly signed by EMI.
Wait. First off, how did they perform live if they're a cartoon band? They just show up there? I'm interested in how their live concert go. Also, they had one song. They show up. It starts a riot. They get signed. What?
Riot. But despite having only one song, they were instantly signed by EMI for their Parlophone label. What they needed now was to write more songs and assemble them into an album.
Here we go.
With the law in place,
that was funky.
Gorillaz needed a sound. Albarn wasn't satisfied with doing Blur Mark II, and so for the most part abandoned guitar music. He was trying to satirize the fake nature of pop bands like A1 and NSYNC. He would need to be making pop music, but with a twist. Bands like Big Audio Dynamite, The Specials, and Massive Attack were templates for what he wanted to do. Groups that created music unique to them, not tied down to a genre or scene. That's what I've always wanted to do, because I always wanted to be in The Specials, and then I wanted to be in Massive Attack. And that's just kind of what I've mixed, really. It's The Specials and Massive Attack together to make Gorillaz.
Okay, well, I don't know who The Special or Massive Attack is. But it's pretty cool. He took two genres, merged them together, and that's what he came up with. And he didn't want to just be blurred, and he didn't want to be like all the other pop bands. But he wanted to make music that was like pop enough, probably, so it can get on the radio and stuff and be popular. But he wanted to have something unique and original. I have to say, Gorillaz are unique and original, that's for sure.
Well, Ghost Train was indeed the first song Albarn wrote for the project, back when they were named Gorilla, singular. He'd been experimenting with that sound within Blur since 1997.
It's called On Your Own, but you know what? That's kind of like one of the first ever Gorillaz tunes, if you want to look at kind of how things sort of develop. I mean, that was definitely a moment where I thought, I quite like doing it this way as well.
The album was written and recorded in bits and pieces from December 1998 through October 2000, initially starting in Albarn's London studio, before moving over to Jamaica's G-Jam Studios to complement the reggae-tinged music that Albarn was creating. But the process wasn't all on Albarn. He invited Dan the Automator of Dr. Octagon and Primal Scream's Exterminator fame to produce. The musician guest list.
Is that the name of a band? Primal Screams? Primal Screams. That's a cool name for a band.
Primal Scream's Exterminator fame
Exterminator.
To produce. The musician guest
Such
list,
a badass
something
name.
that later Gorillaz albums would double down on, features Tina Weymouth of The Talking Heads on 19-2000. Cuban singer Abraham Feria on Latin Simone. As well as Scratching from Kid Koala and Miho Hattori of Sibo Matto supplying the vocal for Noodle.
Get the cool. Get the cool shusha.
As a result, the final product is an eclectic mix of hip-hop, trip-hop, dub and pop. But what it still needed was a blockbuster single.
Right.
Instrumentally, Clint Eastwood is a very simple song. Its reggae-inspired chords were played on a Selena string ensemble keyboard. This was augmented with a drum machine beat, and Albarn's favoured instrument at the time, the melodica. Inspired in part by dub legend Augustus Pablo's use of the instrument. The melody line.
They're pulling influences from everywhere, all over the world, all genres of music, and they're blending it together and trying to create something original. That's so awesome.
Orban peppers within the song is what gave Clint Eastwood its name, due to its comparative similarity to Ennio Morricone's theme for the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right. Oh, I see.
If I hadn't spent all those years learning how to play instruments, I'd be using a sampler to put all these pieces together. Instead, I use a songwriting method that's a lot like sampling, without actually digitally sampling. Ooh. Gorillaz is how I take everything I hear and filter it. Initially, By Life Cypher rapped on the track. But Dan the Automator felt his verses could be improved on. Having worked with Del the Funky Homo Sapien on the Deltron 3030 album, Dan invited him to step it up and write something better.
Finally, someone let me out of my cage. Now, time for me is nothing cause I'm counting no A's.
Dan gave me very little information to work with. He told me the song came from the point of view of Russell, and there's a ghost living in his head of a dead friend, I believe, or something like that. So his spirit is still with him. So I'm like, okay, and what else? That's it? I'm supposed to write something with just that? He's like, just be creative. You have creative license to do what you think it's about from there.
Corruption in the sky from this fucking enterprise. Now I'm sucked into your lives through rust, so not his muscles, but percussion to provide.
Del would also feature on the single Rock the House.
I know you like that. You wanna try that? It's like a flashback, so shake your ass crack.
But the music video is what spun Heads.
What am I missing out on?
Created by a team of about 25, led by Hewlett. The creepy cool video took just under 4 months to animate. What could have been a standard band performance video is thrown out the window because A, they are a cartoon band. B, Russell's departed friend, Del the Ghost Rapper, makes an appearance. And C, there are zombie gorillas. Zombies in pop music videos are not new. In fact, Michael Jackson's Thriller video is explicitly referenced. But Hewlett, in particular, had an affinity for the horror subgenre, watching various zombie flicks while animating. The opening of the video features an on-screen quote from 1978's Dawn of the Dead, in both Japanese and English.
Every dead body that is not exterminated becomes one of them. It gets up and kills.
I never watched those movies. I gotta get around to
Zombies
watch them.
are always a metaphor.
Dawn of the Dead and all
in
that.
Dawn of the Dead, they represent rampant consumerism. In Clint Eastwood, they stand in for the fake pop bands that Gorillaz were formed to defeat. The video was also the perfect way to introduce the band to the public. By the end, viewers knew each member's name, look, and personality. The anonymity of Gorillaz was a plus.
I haven't done that video, have I?
No longer having to be in the music video or be the center of attention that his Britpop years in Blur had thrust upon him. I don't think I was ever cut out to be a great frontman. I think it's something I enjoyed to a degree, but I think I was a bit too self-conscious.
Whoa, this how you got sweet, carry alongside a man called Ed Case with the Gorillaz, the refix in a seat.
Clint Eastwood was released as a single on the 5th of March 2001. Its innovative video and ample airplay got the track to number 3 in the UK charts. A more high-tempo garage remix by Ed Case also helped the track get play with club DJs, and was the version that appeared on Now 48.
I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, but not for long, the future is coming on.
Said enemy
like
of the remix,
a little faster.
A little shift in perspective, and suddenly you've got a West London basement jacks, embodying a more interesting and accurate vision of England than anything Blur dared to attempt. The album went number 3 in the UK charts and climbed to number 14 in the US Billboard chart. Despite having 3 top 10 singles in the US Billboard Hot 100, Blur were never really embraced by the US. Gorillaz, on the other hand, were. And worldwide, Clint Eastwood became Damon Albarn's biggest hit, particularly resonating with Italy, Japan, and South America. It has since been praised by NME and Rolling Stone as one of the greatest songs of the 2000s.
It's interesting how, like, different parts of the world it'll rank higher, right? Because it's just your culture and what music you're into and that kind of thing. But it's like, you know, it might be 13 in the US, but it could be number 1 in this country or that country. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, but it might take a little while. Like, there's probably more competition on the US charts as well, I would imagine, right? Because I don't know, I just feel like most music comes out of the US. Is that fair to say? I'm sure every country got its own. No, it's probably just me because I'm over here and the only thing I absorb is American culture. But yeah, I don't know. On a global scale, where does the bulk of the music come from? I don't know.
The song and Gorillaz' lasting impact can be seen on the next generation of alternative music. No longer merely guitar pop, artists like the 1975, Foster the People, AWOL Nation, and Paramore have taken Gorillaz' collision of rock, hip-hop, and electronica and run with it.
Really?
From the hip-hop side of things, Tyler the Creator, Brockhampton, Trippie Redd, and A$AP Rocky have all noted the influence of Gorillaz' first album.
Okay.
They also proved that a virtual band concept could work, resulting in Adult Swim's Def Clock, Hatsune Miku, and even Poppy, pushing the boundaries of how you can deliver pop music in a postmodern context. Gorillaz showed that it could be more than a gimmick.
I did not know Gorillaz was that influential. Like, I knew they were a good band and popular, and a lot of my friends liked them a lot and that kind of thing, but I didn't know, like all these other artists, they're influencing their music style and then a lot of people on how to perform. It's like, yeah, I don't have to be there. I can use animation or just, you know, 3D effects or whatever instead of just being there. Yeah, it's pretty cool. People, it's like Gorillaz just stepped way outside the box and everybody was like, oh, we can do that?
In a postmodern context, Gorillaz showed that it could be more than a gimmick. The animated video was no doubt attractive to younger fans, aided by Gorillaz' award-winning web integration, and it expanded that generation's sonic palette. No longer satisfied with the sweetest pop bubblegum, with Gorillaz, Albarn could expose them to concepts that did not get radio play. Latin folk, reggae, trip-hop, spaghetti westerns, and George Romero. Gorillaz would go on to bigger and better things, with starrier guest musicians. But Clint Eastwood was the start. The moment where an art rocker, a cartoonist, a satanist, an eyeless crooner, a possessed drummer, and a 10-year-old joined forces, and somehow it made sense. The future was coming on.
Nice. Wow, I know so much more about the band now.
Thanks for watching.
Crap.
What's your favorite Gorillaz track? Comment down below.
Alright everybody, yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for recommending that, Ali. Now, in the future Gorillaz videos that I do, I'll have way more knowledge and insight onto what's going on and the characters and how the band was formed and all these different things. Love it. Now I want to hear more Gorillaz, so comment down below and let me know what other Gorillaz tracks to check out. I'm not sure if I've watched the video for Clint Eastwood. I'm pretty sure I've heard the song before, but I don't know. Yes, I've heard the song before. I just don't think I've seen the video. Maybe I already did it on the channel. I don't know. It just seemed weird. That's enough rambling. Peace and love, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. All right? Take care.